Maybe I will give you a little background of myself so you have some idea. Born in Cambodia, in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, and my father, who is still alive and living in the United States, also with me, was an advisor to the king and also a member of the Cambodian cabinet. When I was about 8 years old, my father was sent on a diplomatic mission to India. So our whole family moved to New Delhi, India with him, and I and my brother was put to a school there to study. This will explain how a person from Cambodia ended up in India in a temple that was built by my grandfather in India. I'll just give you a little background. So after a year, my father's diplomatic mission came to an end. So they moved back to Cambodia, but decided to leave myself and my brother in school under the guardianship of my grandfather. At that time, my grandfather has just found the Ashoka Vihara, or the Ashoka Ashram, as it's now popularly known. He is a Buddhist monk, as you know. This monastery is about an hour and a half from the main center of New Delhi. It's all at the outskirts of New Delhi. And it is a very large temple with 6 buildings in the compound. I give you a background of the temple so you have an idea of the place and how the ship appears and so on. So from 8 years old onwards, my brother, who was about 6 years old, grew up in this temple under the guardianship of my grandfather. Because my parents was not able to be with us, they kind of surrounded us with a lot of caretakers, like I have an English nanny who taught me English. So of course, one of those person who visited this temple was a Swiss person. Now, of course, we all, at least I know popularly, everyone also know that his name is Eduard Meier. But at that time, of course, he was just called Billy Meier, Billy. Of all the people, of hundreds of people that passed through our place, why I took notice of him? Because we never have any conversation. The way I was brought up was not to talk to any strangers, especially male. You know. So I just observed people. And one of the person that I observed coming in and out to my grandfather's room, to the temple area in the evening, or to take classes or lessons from my grandfather, was this person. He has a very unusual eye. I remembered when I was 9 years old, when I first noticed him. Out of all these people, he has this strange eyes that is so penetrating when he look at you or when you look at him, that it goes right to your inner core. I used to have, when I was 8 years old, my first notice of a visitation was in the evening, late in the evening, when I finished my study with my tutor. I would go to bed. My brother and I share a room, and the ayah will put us to bed, and then they will leave. We would sleep, and then I would have this lady who would just appear in the room and would come to me, and then I will fall asleep. The first time it happened, I didn't understand what it was, but it felt so wonderful. I felt I was perfectly at home and was with my parents. Although my mother was in Cambodia, but I felt very comfortable, very, very at home, very comforted and peaceful. I fell asleep. A while later, the same thing happened, but this time she would come and pat my head, she would sit at the edge of my bed, put my head on her lap, and I could say, sing me to sleep, but she didn't sing. She didn't use, there was no words, it's not a tone even, it's not a humming. There was some high-pitched tone that was so beautiful to my ear that I would right away fall asleep. And it goes on for a little while like that, and I would ask my brother, who was 6 years old at the time, and he said yes, he remembered. So after a while, I would kind of look forward to her coming. I don't know who it was. I don't know it was anybody. All I felt was wonderful and feeling so at home. I didn't know then that it was Asket. There was no name, but I know that it was a real living being because my head was on her lap. It was as real as my head would be on my mother's lap. This went on for quite some time. And then once or twice, it was not right away I would fall asleep, but she would sit at the edge of my bed, and then now as I understand it, convey some kind of understanding of messages, and I would just sit there and kind of absorb everything. I didn't read, there was no conversation, but there was conversation going on, as I now know that there must be some kind of a transference, because I understood everything. She told me something that later on I will have more understanding than in later part of my life, and now I do. So stuff like that. And when I would, the next day I would wake up, I would feel, like I understood everything, as how the worlds come about, how people are the way they are, how this person is happy or sad. I would know that. So one time I was observing people coming in and out of my grandfather's temple. Suddenly I saw this being now we call Billy walking, and he was accompanied by the being that used to come and sing me to sleep. So then I know for sure, there was no doubt in my mind that he's also a friend. It was suddenly I see somebody who has been close to me for all this time, walking with somebody who I have always noticed that there was something different about him. Together walking. And at the same time that I noticed and became aware of them walking together, I felt that they also knew that I was aware. So both of them turned and looked at me and then continued on in their conversation and so on. And that was, she would come to meet Billy Meier at the ashram many, many times. And they would walk around looking at areas, looking at the temple and discuss the teachings, because Billy at the time was, I think, still under the spiritual instruction of Asket. And understanding, I transferred to her, saying that this being, he's walking, he's staying with us. I find that he's okay, or something like that. I don't exactly recall, but I know that there was like a telling her or something.